Ask the questions. I ask enough questions. But Matt, first off, do you miss it? You recently retired. Are you coming back? Because everyone in combat sports comes back at some point, right?
I've always said when I retire, I'm not coming back. But you know, if they would open Madison Square Garden up, that would be something to tell my kids I competed in. But it'd be a long conversation with my wife, with Dana White, figuring out an opponent for me. So 99% chance it won't happen, but boy, would that be something to look forward to.
But he said there's a 1% chance, so if it gets legalized in New York this year, you're going to fight MSG. Is that it? Because I think that's all we need.
That's not what I said.
That's not what you said. Okay. What did you say again? You said maybe 99%.
It's a 1% chance I could compete.
I got excited. You don't miss it at all, though.
Talk to your boy DW. I mean, you guys are buddies. So,
all right. We'll see him at 5 o'clock. By the way, Dana White, UFC president. That's a good segue there, Matt. Well done. But you miss it. You miss the competition.
I love it. I grew up competing. I grew up with a twin brother on a farm away from everybody else. So all we did was compete. That's how we stayed active. So I've been competing my whole life. My wife has a hard time dealing with me now because I don't have a competitive outlet. So she doesn't understand, but it's just different. And I got to cope with it, and it's just the way it is.
Well, he is one of, if not the greatest of all time. Of course, he won this belt many times. You say it's 9 times, right? You're the 9-time champion. How many title fights did you compete in?
9 title fights. No.
You won.
GSP.
Right?
I lost to GSP. I beat Hoist, that was not a title fight. I beat Riggs, that was not a title fight when I was champion. But maybe I lost to GSP too.
Yes, one for the interim belt. Yes. My question is, though, you know a thing or two about title fights. There's one going down Saturday in Newark. Last question I'm going to ask, and then it's up to you guys. Who's your pick? Will Chael Sonnen shock the world? Will he beat John Jones?
You're going to call me out like that? I got to pick somebody?
I asked the tough questions.
I know. How would Dana White answer this? He would be a politician.
Oh, you can do it if you want.
I'll be real honest. I think Chael's got an uphill battle. Jones he's an athlete, man, and I think his wrestling's going to be superior in the cage. He's quicker, he's longer, he's the better striker. So I don't know. I don't know how Chael would really come out with his hand in the air. I gotta say, Jones is probably.
If he wins, greatest upset in UFC history, bigger than Matt Serra, New York's own Matt Serra, your boy.
That's when you say greatest upset. That's the first thing that came to my mind was Matt Serra beating GSP. It'd be up there. Maybe it wouldn't be close, or maybe it wouldn't top it, but it would be close to it.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, let's open it up to questions. Who's got some questions? We have a microphone right here. You can ask Matt whatever you want. He said anything goes. No holds barred. You're up first, my friend.
Every morning when you wake up, do you do something differently to not think about fighting? Is there something you change in your routine?
I got 2 highlights in my day, and people with kids will realize that. When I wake up in the morning, I go out, and first thing my feet hit the floor, I try and find something to do. Kind of maybe back to the farm life where I go outside and do something, or do something in the house. I just get something done. Then I wake my kids up and take them to school. That's a big highlight for me. Well, I wouldn't say I get up and I don't dust. I don't put laundry away or anything like that. But I try and do something active in the morning, first thing in the morning. And then I come back and get the kids ready. Taking them to school is a fun part of my day. Right after I take my kids to school, I go lift weights for an hour.
So you're the one driving your kids to school. So if my son goes to your school, I will see you in the morning dropping your kids off.
Dad, or I just pick your kid up, take him to school with me.
Wow. You're a great guy. All right. Who else has a question for Matt Hughes? Here we go in the front.
There's been a lot of talk about the super fights. Which one would you be most interested to see? GSP and Anderson, or Anderson and John Jones? How do you think GSP would fare against Anderson?
The first question, actually they're both very interesting to me.
Holding a microphone.
The fact that Anderson is so willing to go up and fight Jones is pretty interesting because I think Jones would have the upper hand there with the wrestling ability, the length, and just being the younger fighter. So Anderson's wanting to compete against Jones is interesting to me. And I think if George moved up or they fought in a catch weight somewhere in between, I used to think that George would walk away with his hand in the air, no doubt about it. But watching the last couple of fights, he just doesn't seem like he's into the sport 100% anymore. He just doesn't. So I don't know how that fight would go. I used to think he would win. Now I just think it would it'd be pretty close.
Who else has a question for Matt Hughes? Don't be shy. Ask
Hey, Matt.
whatever you want.
First of all, thank you for all the years of entertaining fights. It's been a great career to follow. Now that you're retired, though, looking back, do you have any regrets on your career?
Yeah, I've got like 7 or 8 losses, so of course I've got a lot of regrets. But I would have liked to win somewhere and win. I would never have fought Rich Franklin. Then I was too close to friends. I wouldn't have jumped the weight class to fight a friend. But if Evan was the title holder at the time, I wish I would have jumped up and tried to unify those 2 belts. I'm not to chase records, but I would have been the first guy to ever have 2 belts at the same time. It would have been fun. Yeah.
I have a quick follow-up. You talk about those losses. If there's one that you could avenge, is there one that kind of eats at you inside that you wish you could get one more crack at that guy?
No, I don't like the BJ loss at the very end. My gosh, the guy beat me twice. How can I ask for a rematch on somebody who beat me twice and I only beat him once? GSP, of course, beat me twice. But no, nothing really eats at me for the most part.
Who's next?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good, how you doing?
Which trilogy will you consider the best of your career? Either with you against GSP or you against BJ?
In what respect do you think? I think the BJ and me. I think I should have won that. I think that if me and BJ would have fought our last fight and went the whole distance, I would have got my hand raised. But he hit my button and I fell down and he won the fight. GSP is just a tough guy. If it would have went the whole distance, I don't think I would have won the fight. So BJ and I were a lot more competitive, where it was a lot closer. George was I was on my way down. George was close to the top, and he was doing very well.
Who wants to talk to Matt Hughes? This man right over here has been one.
Hi, Matt Hughes. It's a pleasure to welcome you. But what keep a legend like yourself inspired and motivated, not only in the octagon, but in life itself?
When I was, I think a lot of people get the belt and they go through a dry spell after they get the belt. I always, when I won a belt, I always looked at my next fight as winning a new belt. I put my old belt underneath my bed. I didn't think about it. It wasn't out in public. I didn't bring it out. And I always, when I was getting ready for my next fight, I was always, hey, I'm going to go win a new belt. I'm not going to go defend my belt. I'm going to win a new one. I think that mentality kept me a little bit sharper and a little bit more hungrier than maybe some fighters that don't think it that way. If I could get a hold of GSP before a fight, the week ahead of a fight, I'd say, hey, GSP, let me have your belt. I'm going to keep your belt, and if you lose Saturday night, I'm going to put your belt on that opponent. He gets your belt. I bet that would motivate him a little bit to work a little harder and to keep his belt. No disrespect to GSP at all. I just think that would motivate people if you took their belt and gave it to the opponent.
Matt, you brought up GSP. I've been dying to ask you this question because I think you'd be able to break it down better than anyone. I think that Johnny Hendricks will be his toughest test in the last couple of years. I think Johnny has the formula to perhaps dethrone GSP. Do you agree? And if so, why?
I think, yes, he definitely has what it takes to do it, but we just don't know if it'll get done in there. Robbie Lawler explained to me a couple of years ago, and I heard him talk, and it was true. This is a sport of big hits. And who can land that big hit and end that fight early? And Hendricks is definitely one of those guys that can land that big hit. George has been hurt with hits before, so I mean, if he can connect, it could be a short fight. But George is so good about coming up with a good game plan, taking people off their feet, which Hendricks has got great wrestling as well. So I mean, very, very interesting fight.
I hope we get to see that later this year.
Yeah, I do too.
Any other questions for Mr. Hughes? I could just stand here and ask him questions all day, but I'd rather give it to you guys.
What are your thoughts on WMMA? women's MMA, and also the Fallon Fox situation.
I don't like to see a woman get hit. I don't care if it's another woman throwing the punches. But there have been some pretty good fights in the UFC, to be honest. I've watched them both, and it's one of those things where the women were coming out. I didn't really want to watch the fight because I just don't like to see, but I couldn't turn my head. I watched both fights all the way through. So I'm not a huge fan of it, but I would never take that away from them. If they want to fight, that's fine. Last thing I want to see is some lady walking out the ring all cut up with blood running down her face. I just don't want to see it. The Fallon Fox is very interesting. We kind of wish you hadn't asked me that question, but I'm going to go ahead and answer it. I don't know what's going to happen if the commissions are going to license her. You know, if they license her, I don't know what the UFC is even going to do. You know, I'm not saying I think it's fair. I'm not saying it's not fair. But like I said before, I'm not a huge fan of a woman getting beat up in the octagon. And I don't want, you know, a previous guy that had the drugs to turn him into a woman beating somebody else up in the octagon. So they say that after 2 or 3 years of the drugs, that you're actually weaker than a woman would be. I find that hard to believe. So you know, so I don't know. So, but I don't know what she's going to do. So I don't know if she's going to try and fight in the UFC or what. So we'll just see how it plays out.
And the women have been taking the UFC by storm. As you mentioned, there have been 2 fights thus far inside the octagon. Ronda Rousey, Liz Carmouche. Amazing fight at UFC 157. Then just recently, Kat Zingano defeated Misha Tate at the tough finale a couple weeks ago. And then on Saturday, we have the 3rd women's fight in UFC history. Sarah McMahon, who won a silver medal at the 2004 Summer Olympic Games in wrestling. I believe she shares the same manager as you, Monty Cox, right? She'll be fighting Sheila Gaff out of Germany. So that's a great fight. That's airing on FX. You get that fight for free.
And the Ronda fight, I really enjoyed that fight because Ronda didn't take somebody down and did an armbar in the first minute. She had a little adversity in there. She actually, the girl got her back. So I like to see that, just like John Jones. I like to see John Jones go through a little adversity in there, come back after maybe losing a round, and then do well. You know, I would rather see ups and downs and not just somebody going in there for 5 rounds kicking somebody's butt. That makes sense?
That totally makes sense. Actually, I want to ask you another because I can't help myself. Speaking of ups and downs, you mentioned Robbie Lawler. Did you ever think he'd be back in the UFC? And not only back in the UFC, but doing what he's doing, knocking out a guy like Josh Koscheck. It seems like he's rejuvenated.
I'm with Robbie. I train with him as much as I can, and this and that. And yeah, I knew he'd be back. I've been wanting him to go to 70 for a long time. He gains weight to stay up at 85. He's not an 85 pounder. And I think he was going to do well against Josh. Yeah, I did. I definitely approved that fight.
Right.
And I knew that he's got that power and he's got that wrestling ability to stay off the ground. And I really thought he'd do well. The fight went just about like I thought it would. I didn't think actually Koscheck was going to do so well taking Robbie down that one time.
Right.
But he couldn't keep him down. But so Josh did a better job than I thought he would. But I knew, man, Robbie's got 2 cinder blocks inside those gloves. And man, when he hits somebody, they fall down.
And he has a huge fight against Tarek Safadine coming up later this summer, the last Strikeforce champion.
In Seattle, maybe?
Yes. Big fight. All right. Who's next? Man in the glasses, right over there. Oh, you'll be next, sir.
What's going on, Matt?
How you doing, sir?
Hey, I heard actually you're a natural apprehension for the women's mixed martial arts, but when you started back in 1998, did you go through a similar, circumstance where they thought that MMA was like a bare knuckle sport back in 98?
My first fight was in 97, and I've seen everything from protesters to it not being legal to going to a fight and it getting canceled because the commission stepped in. So we had a lot of adversity back then. But when Zuko bought the UFC, they really ran to the commissions, made it all legal. So since then, there's been no problems really whatsoever. UFC is a great run organization.
Pardon me.
Good, how you doing?
Good. My question is kind of long, but I know that you come from a wrestling background. I wonder, what do you think about what's going on with the wrestling and Olympics? Because a lot of people is putting a lot of energy on that, but the reality is that for people who doesn't follow wrestling, it's kind of difficult to follow the Olympics. It's kind of boring if you don't have the knowledge. So it makes more sense for me if you push more for MMA, thinking about on the entertainment factor of the Olympics. So what do you think about you don't think that it makes more sense to push to try to put MMA in that situation instead of pushing for wrestling?
I don't think you should tear one sport down to build another one up. I think there's room to do something else. They've got the girls doing the flag stuff, and they got a bunch of silly stuff that if you're going to take something out, take something that's not really a sport out. As far as wrestling, it was one of the founding sports in there. I don't see how you can take that out. I really don't.